742 Evergreen Terrace standing in for an ancient temple, and Homer in the dual role of a boulder and an angry native. This attention to detail in Bart's Indiana Jones Escapade highlights just how The Simpsons was unmatched in its tributes to cinema. And for anyone who doubts the show's credentials, look no further than 22 short films about Springfield expertly recreating this infamous Pulp Fiction scene.
Hold it right there.
As well as Dustin Hoffman's arrival into Springfield Elementary to receive a saucy offer from Mrs. K.
Mrs. Krabappel, you're trying to seduce me.
It's one thing to successfully recreate an iconic moment, but it can fall flat if not perfectly in keeping with the characters' personalities, and this is something that The Simpsons have always excelled in. So I want to take a look back over the history of the show and find out how The Simpsons have used the power of parody to enrich their characters and their storytelling, and see if they are still the masters of it today. Movie parodies have been a staple on The Simpsons since its very first episode. Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire referenced Miracle on 34th Street, Season 1's Bart the General faithfully recreated scenes from several war movies, and Episode 9's ending had an obvious callback to An Officer and a Gentleman, which was super cute. And although some references were easy to catch, others were certainly more obscure, like Maggie's recreation of a scene from a 1950s French short film, and some Enchanted Evening's portrayal of the terrifying basement scene from 1955's Night of the Hunter. Season 2 only built upon this talent for homaging cinema, whilst also inserting the Simpsons personality that made the scenes feel authentic to the plot. The townsfolk singing around a Christmas tree, much like the Who's in the Grinch, as well as Homer's recreation of George Bailey, joyfully frolicking through the streets of Springfield. These episodes were as euphoric in the context of the episode as they were in the films.
Look! Look! Good morning, Springfield!
And these heartfelt tributes sometimes extended into episode-long parodies, and even warped our pretty confident perceptions of characters we previously believed to be just plain evil. This started in Season 2's 4th episode, featuring many direct references to the classic Citizen Kane, with the one and only Mr. Burns imitating Charles Foster Kane and his political ambitions, as well as his clumsy attempts of trashing a room. The show would pick up from this again in Season 5's Rosebud, with Mr. Burns' attachment to his childhood bear Bobo. It even adopted a similar sympathetic backstory that the Awesome Worlds movie had. This just goes to show how The Simpsons didn't reference an existing film classic just for the sake of it. They used them to shape and deepen the characters, and it put the likes of Mr. Burns in vulnerable positions that we hadn't seen before, bringing out some truly touching moments and made him look almost human. Pushing these characters into realms unknown continued, with a housebound Bart going full-on James Stewart mode when suspecting good old Ned Flanders of murdering Maude. And it was only a matter of time before Sideshow Bob was on the rampage once again, pursuing The Simpsons in a surprisingly faithful homage to Cape Fear. This time expanding on Bob's unique relationship with Bart and how menacing he could truly be in the show. Basically, The Simpsons movie references used to work perfectly with the characters' storylines. It pushed them to new lengths without straying too far from who they were and their roles in the show. It's no wonder why Principal Skinner's unsettling relationship with his mother was likened to Norman and Mrs. Bates. And when it came to his love life, it was done through the guise of Hitchcock's Vertigo. Just as Jimmy Stewart became obsessed with two identical women, Skinner's blind date with Selma saw him develop a fascination with her twin Patty. This foundation not only worked perfectly in the episodes, but also contributed to our perception that Skinner simply has a thing for brash, powerful women. These movie references not only took characters into paths untrodden, but also the show, allowing it to get incredibly dark sometimes. Bart's fear of electrified cupcakes is a nod to A Clockwork Orange's aversion therapy, making Lisa's experiment especially cruel, and audiences also got to witness the severe toll Homer's friendship takes on a person as he morphed into the T-1000 in his relentless pursuit of Ned. And it wasn't just the canon episodes. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror were given more freedom to be less subtle with their references because they didn't have to fit into their canon world and normal storylines. All of a sudden, we could have the strange gremlins like in Terror at 5.5 feet, referencing the Twilight Zone's Nightmare at 20,000 feet, and a blood-sucking Mr. Burns in Bart Simpson's Dracula. The team's animation techniques made these horror parodies feel more authentic too. In an interview with AV Club on the making of The Shining, animator and series consultant Brad Bird talked about working with the storyboard artist. He advised the artist, "No, come on man, we're doing a take on The Shining here. Let's look at how Kubrick uses his camera. His camera always uses wide-angle lenses, oftentimes the compositions are symmetrical, so let's do a drawing that simulates a wide-angle lens." He added, "Look, we can't spend a lot of money on elaborate animation, but we can have sophisticated filmmaking." This made this segment in particular feel very distinctive in terms of the look and the feel, while still remaining loyal to the comedy and the characters' personalities in the show.
No TV and no beer make Homer something something.
And the thing is, when I was watching these episodes growing up, I had no idea that most of these were parodies, and it wasn't until much later when watching the movies did I have countless Leonardo DiCaprio moments. It's easy to forget, seeing as most of us watched this show as kids, that The Simpsons never aimed itself at younger audiences. It was an animation intended for adults. And so these references were for our parents to catch, but despite this, the scene still worked for us as kids. At 8 years old, I definitely hadn't watched Citizen Kane, but I still love Rosebud. This was the same for Bart of Darkness's references to Hitchcock's Rear Window, and what child has seen Scorsese's super dark Cape Fear? I didn't, but even still, it didn't stop me from laughing my butt off at the movie theatre scene.
Oh really, now that's too much.
It's funny looking back and realizing how totally oblivious I was to the dark films that inspired these classic Simpsons episodes. This is where The Simpsons excels, whereas shows like Family Guy fails. The Simpsons would never turn to the camera and wink when they do these parodies, while Family Guy seems to literally pat themselves on the back for doing them.
Movie references.
No hate to Family Guy, of course, as I've made tons of videos about it. By the way, please subscribe to Lydia Loves Timelines. But my point is that The Simpsons are just masters of parody. It's been baked into their DNA since its beginning, and has truly helped shape some of the most memorable moments in the show and its characters, rather than distracting us from them. I was watching the Simpsons movie for the first time in ages recently, and only now did I catch references that went well over my head as a child. The itchy and scratchy opening alone contained shot recreations from The West Wing and 2002's Hero. And only 15 years later did I realise that the gas station scene was taken directly from the Leslie Nielsen comedy Wrongfully Accused, and I had no idea while at the cinema, but I still found it funny. And although I've spoken a lot about the earlier seasons, the newer episodes are just as capable of using references and parodies to enrich their stories too. Barthood was an incredible and heartfelt reaction to 2014's Boyhood, as we really got to see Bart growing up throughout the years. The show even dived deeper into his sweet relationship with his grandpa, as well as his tribulations with his dad. Another reason why you shouldn't underestimate modern Simpsons is season 32's A Springfield Summer Christmas for Christmas, which was a surprisingly accurate spoof of made-for-TV holiday movies, right down to the incessantly jolly music.
That was the worst movie I've ever seen.
All the while, Comic Book Guy's lonely origin felt perfectly at home in the quaint style of a Wes Anderson movie, whose films often play on the bizarre misfits of society. And if you're still not convinced by modern Simpsons, look no further than A Serious Flanders. This wonderfully macabre tribute to Fargo perfectly built on Homer and Ned's existing relationship. And despite this being a two-part parody of a TV show I had never even watched, this is still one of my favourite Simpsons episodes in a very long time. As such, I certainly didn't catch all of the references in the show, but that didn't stop me from enjoying it. Which just goes back to my earlier point, that The Simpsons are masters at parody, and even if you don't have an idea of what the reference is, you can certainly still enjoy it. The Simpsons are just unmatched. You don't need a wink or a nod to show it's a parody. The show's writers obviously love cinema as much as us and wanted to indulge in it, as well as using it to elevate the story and the characters. And so that comes to the end of the video. Let me know your favourite Simpsons parody in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I'll smell you later and see you in the next one.